and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for the last 3 decades, that's 30 years for you non-mathematicians, as the money lady throughout the United States and internationally. And this is a continuation of my last show where I interviewed one of my collaborators for Perfect Transformation that broadcast all through the summer and was foundational to helping many of you to transition into a balanced life. Because as I've shared repeatedly, that when I crossed over into 65 a year ago, because now I'm crossing over into 66, it hit me that all of the money knowledge in the world could not heal a broken heart, could not make your families do right, could not make you eat right if you're a habitual addict, and all the things that have little to do with money but are integral to a holistic and healthy way of living. And so last segment, I talked to Elder Dennis Hatchett, one of my collaborators on Perfect Transformation, about his area of expertise, which deals with intimacy and relationships and marriages. And he's excellent. Oh my God, he is so over the top in terms of his analytical skills and practicality. He's helped me immensely to get to myself. I consider him my friend, also my brother. And so we're going to get quickly into part 2 of intimacy, relationships, and marriage, where we're going to continue this discussion about this subject matter. I want to presage this by giving you a couple of things. If you missed the first segment, you can always go on YouTube and type in my name, Michelle Graves, Power Money, and you should get this interview. But last week, the takeaway was this, that without communication, you go nowhere. You go nowhere where you're communing with one another. Communication is not conversation. Conversation is superficial, transitional, transactional, and really does not get to the heart and the meat of the issue. Interactive intimacy is step 1 of learning to, again, engage with others in a meaningful and open way. It's not without risk, but this is about your heart, taking care of your heart, because God would have us to be people that were engaged in communication, open, as well as intimacy. And then the second phase he talked about was physical intimacy, which is kind of like the icing on the cake for interactive intimacy. You are open, you're free with that person, and now you can go into that next level, which is consummated through marriage. To violate those rules, by the way, is to set yourself up for horrible outcomes and to break your heart. And I just closed by saying that a broken heart is not a fabrication. Your heart, which is the seat of your rawest, purest consciousness, can be broken. It will ooze sorrow. It will hurt. That's why grieving is so bad. It will cause tremendous sorrow. And so we have to guard our hearts. The Bible says guard your hearts. He really meant it. Protect your hearts. So again, we touched on and talked about physical intimacy as that culmination. We live in a society where they push physical intimacy first. Many of you have been sucked into that and find yourself entrapped and struggling for life support. But again, there are options and there's hope. So part 2 today, and again, I welcome my beloved friend and collaborator, Elder Dennis Hatchett of Embrace Kingdom Ministries with headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio. How are you, my friend?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh gosh, where do we want to begin?
Well, we left off with communication being significant. But
Yes.
I want to take and branch that off and create an understanding that when we start communicating, we have to be careful in the realms that we communicate. Because
Okay.
in life, we have three types of people.
Okay.
We have our comrades,
Yes.
we have our constituents, and then we have our confidants.
Okay.
And we have to understand that each one serves a purpose.
Okay.
But we have a responsibility within ourselves to know how to interact appropriately with each sector of people.
And don't get them mushed together.
Exactly, because when we mush them together, we still get the same dysfunction we would have if we went on and did the process wrong in the first place. Because the thing is, your comrades are the individuals that fight the same battles you fight.
Okay.
They have and possess the same enemy. Your enemy is their enemy.
Okay.
And they will come together with you to fight the enemy. But they have no allegiance to you.
Okay.
They have no concern about you.
Got it.
They have no caring for you. But now those constituents are people that are socially interactive. We frequent a lot of the same places. We have a lot of the same kinds of interests. And they have an associative appreciation for you because,
Okay.
you know, we frequently see each other. But they still have no commitment to you. They
right.
still have no foundation with you.
Right.
Your confidants, on the other hand, those are the ones that are connected to you. They're the ones that are concerned with you. There's the ones that have that intimate interaction where you share the deep things, like Christ would say. It's for them I speak in parables, but for you is to know the deep things of Christ. Your confidants know the deep things. You speak the parables to the constituents and the comrades, but for you is to know the deep things. You can't take the deep things and share it with the constituents, because when you take the deep things and share it with the constituents and then they throw it back in your face, then it's like, okay, they mishandled my information.
Right.
But did
right.
they mishandle your information,
Or did
you
you
mishandle your
Got
information?
it.
So
Got
we
it.
have to be mindful to understand that we deal with each sector differently.
I appreciate your delineating that in the way that you did, because oftentimes, and I would venture to say most times, people get them confused, make assumptions about another person's perception of the relationship. I say they make an assumption because the other person's not unclear. They don't feel that their life is vested in you. But because of that, you cross the boundary and you engage in conversations with them with the expectation of a certain outcome because of your presumption that it was something different. And then when you get blown away, because they're only being what they are and
Absolutely.
doing what they do, and you misunderstood that relationship, and therefore there were negative consequences.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair statement?
It's a very fair statement, because that's exactly how it comes out. Because the thing is, when you, as an individual, you take your intimate information and you start handing it out to the comrades and the constituents, them not having any allegiance to you, your information is just information. So if they want to take it and use it negatively,
Which
they can.
They will, oftentimes.
And now, if we're going to sit here in this position and then try to hold them accountability of confidentiality,
yes.
it's like, okay, is that, am I supposed to hold them accountable to the standard of that they have not shown themselves accountable or able to even stand in?
Right.
They've shown me that they were comrades. So now if I hold them accountable to the confidant status, I set them up to fail.
Because they can't.
So when they fail, it's not their fault. It goes back to you.
Got it.
So the most.
Oh, this is so good.
So the most important.
I didn't even know this.
Oh, so the most
Oh my
important
God.
factor is.
Wait a minute, let me just say this. For those of you that I have handled as confidants, and the most you had capacity to get to was as a comrade, meaning we had similar goals, I release you back to yourself. It was me. It was me. I take responsibility for outcome in my particular case, and I free you to go on and do and be whatever you wish. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, that's definitely fair because
I
you know
think
what?
people need to do that.
Well, we do, because when we come to recognize that the inappropriacy that was executed was ours and not theirs, then we have to forgive them.
Yes.
Because of our inappropriate judgment.
Yes, we.
But then we have to ask their forgiveness
Right.
for inappropriately judging them.
Right.
And,
Right.
and the thing is, until we come back and set those records straight, our records won't be straight. And the
I
Bible
got some
says,
record cleaning to do. I got some cleaning
the
to
Bible
do.
says all things decent and in order.
All things.
So if your relationships aren't part of those all, then you're still not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And
That's
all of
so
it is supposed
hard,
to be in
though.
alignment.
That's so hard. I mean, we can sit here and do an academic assessment, but when boots are on the ground and you're out here dealing with people and you have set up all kinds of relationships that aren't even relationships in the way that one would think in terms of intimacy, but project driven or specific to a circumstance or a situation, that's not the same as what the longing of the heart is. Because the longing of the heart, I believe, is for intimacy and for a confidant.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so may I ask you, are family members recruited into confidant status and should not be?
Most of them get a buy to be confidants, but they don't fit the criteria or either accept the responsibility.
So give me the criteria for a confidant.
The criteria for a confidant, first of all, there has to be confidentiality.
Okay. In a
Secondly,
family, that's going to be hard.
definitely.
Definitely.
So then after you move beyond confidentiality, then there's a respect and an honor. Because now I respect you and honor you in who you are. Because when I respect you and honor you, then I'm not judging you. And most family members are the most judgmental people we'll ever run into.
Oh my God.
You know you're this and you
Oh,
know
girl,
you
I
ain't
had to,
this
I
and you
had to
ain't
do that. I had to have that conversation just the other day about something I did in long past, but haven't done it in well over a decade. And they brought it to my attention. And my response was, oh, I haven't done that in 10 years or more.
Absolutely.
And they were like, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. I didn't do that, and I don't know why you're bringing it up.
Because that's what they know you for. That's all they know you of. That's what they remember about you. That's the thing that sticks out in their mind. And that's where the honor and respect comes in, because the honor and respect acknowledges your change, acknowledges your growth.
Okay.
Dishonor will not ever
I love
honor
that
your
term.
change.
It honors your change
Absolutely.
and your growth, because as a part of being a human, growth and change are required to thrive.
Yes, ma'am. And
You
their
can't stay
inevitabilities.
stuck unless you plan on dying in place. I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because, the thing is, when we come to the place where we stop judging others,
Okay.
we'll stop over judging ourselves. Because the exercise of judgment only breeds judgment.
Right.
So when we stop judging, when we stop and we open ourselves up, because that's the third part, we open ourselves up to receive newness
Okay.
and embrace the difference. When we open ourselves up to receive the newness and embrace the difference, now we have an open mind to hear what you have to say and express in totality. We don't listen to just one sentence and then judge the rest of the circumstance based on the expression of the one sentence. Because most people in the constituents situation, constituents listen to react. Confidants hear to respond. And there's a major difference between hearing to respond and listening to react.
Okay.
When
So give me an example of how that plays out as a constituent.
From a constituent standpoint, We can be talking about the football game,
Okay.
and Johnny Unitas just threw a touchdown. But then we seen that there was the receiver that caught the pass pushed off. So now would he have caught the touchdown had he not pushed the defender off to free himself up to be able to make the catch? So then now you can say, well, it's a touchdown, it's a touchdown. Or we can say, well, would have been a touchdown if this had have happened. It would have been a touchdown if this had happened. And they won't know it was a touchdown.
Okay.
They're not going to open their mind to evaluate.
They're not going to open up, yeah.
They're not going to evaluate any additional information. They're not going to look at any bigger picture. Nope, it is what it is.
Okay. I know
And
people like that.
And that's the constituents limitations. It is what it is. There is nothing deeper than that.
Right, and therefore there is no presumption of empathy.
Absolutely.
Because that's not what makes their world. They
Not
make an
even
evaluative assessment,
And that's it.
and they're done.
And that's it. But that's what we go to school to learn too.
I'm clear.
Education teaches us that.
You know,
This is what it is.
the money lady. Hey, you do this.
This
This is what happens. You don't budget, chaos. I mean, boom. But the empathy that comes from knowing a person's situation changes the evaluation.
Well, you know, when you have an empathetic heart is always looking to connect.
Right. Got it.
And that's what true intimacy is, a connection.
Connection.
So if you're open-minded to connect with where they are, because your connection is only a reminder to you of where you used to be. It's not an acknowledgement that you're still there,
Right.
but it is an acknowledgement that I remember when. And in remembering when, now I can associatively communicate with you about the subject matter.
Because I remember when.
Exactly. And now being in that place where I was there and having come from that place, now I'm qualified to assist you in navigation and getting out of where you are to getting to a better place yourself.
That's awesome.
It is.
So when we talk about empaths, because one of the things that was new information for me was a woman had told me, I was going through paperwork and I found some information going back almost 25 years that was a woman had written about me, and she said I was an empath. She said that underneath that business is a person who's deeply concerned about other people's lives. And I had to say, and she said to me then, which I wasn't hearing it, but she said then, she said, you must not suppress that. And so I wanted to say, because I don't even know where Julie Goebel is today. I mean, it's been, I pray she's alive, I'm not sure. But it took me 25 years to come to the place where I am deeply concerned about where other people are, and not afraid to engage them in a intimacy about their lives and the choices they have made.
Absolutely.
Because again, the consequences that we make from poor decisions that lead to poor choices do have consequence.
Major.
And it chips away. Chip, 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 chip. So by the time you are in your 50s, I don't know what it is about 50, the number 5, but people start cracking on the inside. They do.
Exactly.
I don't care what kind of facades they present. On the inside, they're cracking. Because
Absolutely.
their soul is completely and totally done. And their heart cannot bleed anymore. They've been trying to fake this off. But the broken relationships, broken marriages, jobs, children, all that stuff begins to culminate in a mindset that is absolutely devastating.
In a lot of instances, it is devastating, because the thing that's not recognized is that when you reach 50, youthfulness is no longer a part of your equation.
Woo!
Because
You're right,
youthfulness,
because you're not young.
exactly, youthfulness gave you the capacity to be busy.
Yes.
And busy gave you the capacity to be distracted.
From
Whatever the issues
Right.
are, whatever the traumas were, whatever experiences you encountered, all the
you
things
got
you
that
endured.
youth.
Your youth allowed you to put all those things in a backpack and cover them up and keep acting like nothing ever happened and nothing is significant, nothing's important. But when you turn 50,
Woo-wee.
that busyness starts to shut down because now the avenue of ability to be busy is not presenting itself like it did in your younger days. So now you have the time to sit down and think about issues. Now you have time to address some stuff. And now the stuff that comes to the table that you were used to brushing to the side because you were busy, you can't brush it to the side anymore. And now
Whoa.
without that capacity to brush it to the side, you're left to deal with it, and it ain't going nowhere. It ain't going nowhere.
My God.
So
My
that's
God.
in turn,
and
that's what
so
becomes
is
our
it fair to
destruction.
say that, because it's something about 50, I am telling you, I have met more people that begin the process of falling off the proverbial cliff that are 50. Health issues. I mean, stuff that you dismissed, all of a sudden, health issues, family issues, your relationship, divorces, like getting rid of him or her is going to solve your problem. All of these things seem to come to a head at 50.
Well, they're coming to harvest.
Whoo,
In
my
your first
God.
in your first 50 years, you have seed, 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 and through the 50 years, you have time. At the age 50, you now have harvest. But now everything that you've sown in the first 50
Oh,
years
my God.
now comes to roost. It all comes to surface. It all catches up with you. Why? Because the thing that you were doing that allowed you to distract yourself from it is no longer there.
And now you have
You got to deal with it.
a mirror conversation, which is, oh my God.
Well, actually, you have a mirror that follows you.
A mirror that follows you.
And it doesn't matter where you turn. It doesn't matter what you do. This mirror is still looking at you. It's like, how come I didn't have this mirror before? Because I wasn't 50.
Because I wasn't 50.
Because the thing is, when we're under 50, we're operating in our youth, thinking about getting old.
Yes, and now you're there.
But when we turn 50, the actualization that we're old is now a reality. So the thought pattern is entirely different. But
and
now,
that's really bizarre because people, I'm going to tell you, when I got my AARP card at 50, and they revolutionized aging by sending everybody 50, first thing you wonder, how the heck they know I'm 50? And I was like, they have a crystal ball and it says you're 50. But the other thing was the recognition that, oh my God, I am definitely aging. And the way I looked and behaved in my younger years is no longer operative. How people respond to me is different. They started calling me not the money lady, but Mama Graves. The younger people were like, well, she's an older lady. I was like, oh my God, you did not say that to me. I'm an older lady. Well, yeah, Mama Graves. I was like, take it back, take it back. Take it back. But it's true. And people are not as patient with you either. The stuff you still going through that? You haven't worked that out yet? You do know that the grave is looking at you closer than in your 20s and 30s. That's the insurance companies. And you still doing that?
it's still a mindset.
It's still the mindset
of the world.
Jeez.
Because the thing that we fail to realize when we get 50, we still haven't reached the halfway point. Because
Granted.
Genesis 6:3 tells me that our days upon the land are 120. So if our days upon the land are 120, I'm only half
Right.
age when I get to 60.
Right.
I'm only halfway there.
Halfway there.
But if I'm looking at 50 as being the doorway to the end,
Yes.
then the mindset is locked into, oh, okay, this is it. I need to get some stuff in order, and I need to, and I'm like, really?
Really?
I'm sorry. I'm preparing for the next 60.
Oh my gosh. And why shouldn't you?
Because the thing is, I've had this first 60 to mess it all up.
Okay.
So now let's see what happens when I take all the things that I've learned from all the things that I've messed up,
good.
and now let's reinstitute them and do them all the right way and see what we get for the next 60.
That is absolutely powerful.
Absolutely.
Now, as Dr. Rick Howard would say, your physical stuff better be in line with your optimism.
Absolutely.
Because if you have lived your first 50 years completely and totally oblivious,
Which most of us have.
which most of us have, drinking pop and eating pigs and everything, just being wacko, then it's going to be very hard.
Very difficult.
Very hard to get to that 120 mark.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are doing it,
Oh, yeah.
but most people are not.
Exactly.
They crossing over before 70.
Struggling to get to 65.
Struggling to get to 65.
Exactly.
I mean, really struggling. So, moving on in terms of this issue of intimacy and relationships and marriage, is marriage the end game for people? Meaning,
Marriage is the beginning of the game.
give me more.
Everything that you encounter before you come together establishes who you are. Okay. All your experiences, everything that you encounter, it all is a contributing factor to who you are. In that equation, you learn, let's take our cage analogy back.
Okay.
Inside your cage, you know how everything works and functions and everything.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
But you have a system that usually works for you that keeps you going from day to day to day to day. So now you have this other person that has their cage and their
Okay.
systems that work for them from day to day to day to day. So now when you get married, you have the opportunity to take the best of this cage and mix it with the best of this cage to create a whole new cage. So it's the beginning.
Which is
The beginning of
the
a whole
beginning
new,
of a whole new
a
thing.
whole new life.
My God.
Absolutely.
My God.
And it just doesn't get any better than that. And if you look at it any other way, I'm sorry, you missed the mark, I'm sorry. Because the thing is, we talk about, the Bible says, think on those things that are lovely. Think on
Yes,
those things
he
that are
does, he
pure. Think of those
does,
things
he
that are
does.
of good report. So if we're looking at, okay, this is what I've done in all these years. And let's throw out all the stuff that didn't work. Let's keep the stuff that did work. You take all the stuff that you have and all the stuff that didn't work, you throw out all your stuff that didn't work, and you keep the stuff that worked well for you. Now, how do we take the things that worked well for and make them work for us? And I think it's an adventure.
I think it would be an adventure
Oh,
if you take
boy.
that perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what happens and why is it? And it's just ironic that when people approach 50, I don't know why I'm doing this 50 thing, divorce rates go through the roof.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, divorce rates, all of a sudden, he isn't the man she thought he was. It took you all these years to figure that out? Or she's not the woman that I married. She's bigger and she's this and she's that. And they bust up at 50.
That's because all the harvest is showing up.
Oh my God, the harvest. I keep remembering.
Yeah, the harvest
you
is
plant
showing up.
the seeds and the harvest.
The harvest is showing up, and now when the harvest shows
Oh,
up,
my
it's like if you're driving down the highway
Yeah,
and they're just planting seed, it's just a big open field
right.
with seed. But when the
The
harvest
corn.
comes and it
Yes,
grows up,
yes.
you can't see because of all of the harvest.
Yes.
Now, when you turn 50, You can't see because the
Harvest
harvest
is
is
showing.
before you. So now when you were able to distract yourself from the harvest, it was okay because I had these things to distract me, to keep me from having to deal with that and having to face that. But now that I'm here, I'm having to face that. And having to face that, I don't want to keep dealing with it, because now the things that I used to use to defer my thought, I no longer have access to, because I don't have the youthfulness to pursue those things anymore.
Because you really don't have it like that.
Exactly. And where I was able to tolerate that only because I had the outlets, now I don't have the outlets, so now I'm not tolerant of that thing anymore, so now it's time to go. It's not so much a time to go as much as it is a time to reassess. So
But it has to be done with a clarity of the need to reassess.
Absolutely.
That this is the harvest from seeds that you've sown.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what?
Oh my God.
The Bible says the seed time and harvest is forever.
Yes, it does. Forever.
And one of the things that I tell people constantly, if you don't like the things that are showing up at your door,
oh my God,
you need to reassess and go into the mirror and say, Father, what seed did I sow for this? Because you said that seed time and harvest is forever. And if this is my harvest, then that means that I had to sow the seed, which means we accept responsibility for that thing that's showing up.
That is absolutely a powerful statement. Viewers, did you just hear what he said? I must accept responsibility.
Absolutely.
For the harvest that is showing up from the seeds that I sowed.
If you don't accept responsibility, there will not be a reassessment.
And what will be the outcome?
Destruction, division, separation, divorce. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. There has to be an acceptance of responsibility, because the reality of the matter is, when we go back to dealing with our confidants, our constituents, and our comrades, we have to accept responsibility for our information, our heart, our trust, our love. And we can't give it to someone who's not in a position to reciprocate that we're giving, because that's what relationship is. It's a reciprocation. An exchange. Of what I'm giving out. I'm giving something out, they're giving me something back. I'm giving something out, they're giving me something back. That's relationship. But when you deal with constituents, there's no reciprocation. It's just what I give to the common goal that we're working for. And with
the common
comrades,
goal may be
the project, the assignment.
Marriage.
The marriage is never...
Is it possible to marry a constituent?
Yes, very possible. But then after the projects go away, then what? What do you have?
Then what do you have?
Exactly. It's like, who are you?
I should not laugh, because I had a very dear friend of mine. I loved her, still do, and her husband, they had a very powerful ministry. And she called me in tears and said he woke up and looked at her in the face and said, I don't even know you. And she said, I'm the mother of your children. He said, I don't even know you. And do you know he divorced her?
I believe it.
He did. He divorced her because he said, I'm not going to be with somebody I don't even know. They had a goal, which was ministry and this and that and the other.
And once it manifested.
They had all these towers of success, and he woke up one morning in their fabulous home and said, I don't know you, and divorced her.
I believe it.
And never came back.
Well, let's look at it. Let's look at it from this perspective. The Bible says that there will be many in that day that will say, haven't we cast out demons in your name? Haven't we healed the sick in your name? And he will say, be gone from me, ye workers
of iniquity.
I know you not.
I know you not.
They had the work of the project, and they were together for the work of the project.
Ooh.
They weren't there for the work of themselves.
Yes.
They not understanding, if they accomplished the work of themselves, the work of the project would be a manifestation and a fruit from the work of themselves.
That is so powerful. So it still all begins with that interconnectivity that leads to a consummation.
Absolutely.
For some, not all, And the end game, of course, with that consummation is the ability to work for common, mutually agreed upon goals and objectives.
Absolutely.
Absent that, it's just
something else.
It's just something
to
else. Does a woman have the responsibility to be careful about who she engages with in terms of any levels of interactive conversation with members of the opposite sex or her sex?
Women have to be more mindful, because the thing that we don't really take stock in is the fact that the system purposefully elevated women in employment to cause a further division, man from woman. Why? Because now women are the ones making the money, so now they're going to be the ones acting in power over the man for the demasculation of men.
Okay.
Because if we can destroy the men, we got the whole.
Got it.
So women being risen to that place, they fall into the hype. And now falling into the hype, you think you're in charge.
Okay.
Now thinking you're in charge, you want to take on the responsibility of making the decisions. And all of that is true. You have that responsibility. And the thing that I speak to is the fact that there needs to be a mindfulness in women to understand more significantly. You can't take the bread of the kingdom and give it to the dogs.
No.
So
only the king.
So now you have to understand your confidants are your kingdom and your kingdom people. The dogs are the constituents and the comrades.
Okay.
And when you start sharing that of you with the constituents and the comrades, that's only supposed to be for the confidants, you're in a greater jeopardy than anybody else.
Right.
Because in actuality, you're at the same jeopardy that we're in when we misappropriate the same. But your consequences are worse than ours because you all are emotional. So now, then you talk about that emotional aspect. When you put the emotional factor in the equation, it makes it an entirely different equation, because now it's based on how you feel, what it did to you, and the disrespect, and you start identifying all of this negativity that only breeds more negativity.
Well, I think that, and this is a challenge, and please, if you hear a phone ringing in the background, it's my phone because I forgot to turn it off. Moving ahead, the challenge I give to women, and this is a personal piece, I have achieved tremendous success in terms of world systems, financial, all of that. But I am here to tell you that your most important contribution to the growth of our community, to the stability of our children, to the elevation of your men is just that, the elevation of your men. If your husband is not going to be a successful candidate in the corporate world, and that's fine, because truthfully, in the Bible and everything else, these men are self-employed. Look at his giftings and encourage him to move in that arena. Encourage him and be a support for him to do that. Conversely, he should also want to help and support you, because it's no fun at the top when you're by yourself. I'm just telling you, my kids kept my sanity, okay? My children did. But it is not nearly so great as you've been promoted to believe it is. A woman and all that stress, and oh my God, and there are great women, and don't get me wrong, and Hillary Clinton and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, there's a price, and it's a butt kicker, because we were never formed to carry that kind of weight. And it does have its toll. It does have its toll. You got to be real about it. That's why she's not interested in running for nothing anymore. She's done. She wants to be a grandma. I'm not mad at her. So I just wanted to put in that 2 cents.
Well, you know, the thing about it too, that I must add to it, we have to have an understanding that when you have, okay, let's say this, when you have a $15,000 relationship where the total household income is $15,000, there's a certain mindset. When you get to the $30,000 household, different mindset.
Okay.
When you get to the $75,000 household, entirely different mindset. So the thing that I warn women to be mindful of, when you get to the $75,000, $100,000 mile marker, millstone, milestone, don't evaluate people
Based on that.
based on a money status. The money status is legitimate, but it's a money status. It's not a people status.
Well, I'm going to tell you, that's the delusion of this economic system, which is you cannot judge an individual based upon their income.
Exactly.
Because there's many, as what I was saying in the other show, when you look at bosses and you're like, how the heck did he get there?
Exactly.
Or how the heck did she? Because these people are not the brightest or the best. They just got there.
Exactly.
But it's important that, particularly if you're involved in a relationship, a marriage, that the primary focus always be each other.
Absolutely.
And how can I lift him up to become all that he has been destined to be?
It's a
And
cultivation.
conversely, how can he, as your king, lift you up to achieve the things that God has deposited in you?
Absolutely.
It's a mutuality. This is what I see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a 100-100. It's me giving 100% of who I am to improve 100% of who you are,
And that is the key.
while you're giving 100% of who you are to improve the 100% of who I am. And if we're always working on that 100-100 exchange, it doesn't matter who makes what.
It does not.
Why? Because it all comes into one house.
Right.
It's all supposed to go into one account.
Right.
So now, if we're dealing on one account, what difference does it make if I bring in the greater portion or if you bring in the greater portion? It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter.
But the thing
But
is,
apparently
we stick
it
to
does.
status and presentation
Yes.
and how it looks and the pride factor that the world wants to label it with. And when you start valuing those things,
More than the
people,
person,
it's a
then
wrap.
it's just a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Now, I must say to you very openly, Elder, that relationally, there have been men who have been extremely intimidated and uncomfortable about my money lady brand, about the work I did in financial management and all of these things. That didn't define who I was, but I was constantly dealing with that type of reaction, which prevented me from ever being able to interact intimately. I guess that's what it is. So where do you go with that?
Well, we have to simply understand, knowledge is power.
Okay.
And the fact that you've accomplished those things that you've accomplished is because you've acquired the knowledge necessary and then established mastery in that you've established.
Okay.
And that in itself, you have a confidence that operates in that
Right.
mastery that they may not have.
But that's okay.
Because it is, but I'm talking about from person to person.
Okay.
When you start looking at the man that's intimidated by the presence that you have, it's because of a lack of presence of himself.
Okay.
He hasn't mastered anything in his life. He hasn't
Okay.
mastered anything in his world. So he
Okay.
doesn't have that confidence. So then when you have a woman walking in that confidence, it's intimidating to that one that doesn't have it.
So how does one respond or react to that? Because that's a real reality for me.
Well, the thing
It's
is,
not going to go away or change. What I've done is what I've done. It's not who I am, but it is what I've done.
right. But the thing is, you have to evaluate the situation to understand if he's open-minded to learn and grow.
Okay.
Because if he's open-minded to learn and grow, then you can sow seed and teach
Got it.
and cultivate, and then, as you said, lift him up. But it's only because he's going to be open-minded to participate in the process.
Got it.
Most people aren't open-minded because we're taught in this world to be closed-minded, independent, individualized, segregated, cut off, and all that other stuff that don't add up to nothing. But if we have and come to the table with an open mind,
And
where
that
there's
needs
an
to
open
happen
mind.
before there's any consideration to covenant.
Oh, boy.
I mean, that's a part of the interactive intimacy as you're talking through things and watching. And I would say watching is key as you become an observer of responses and behaviors. You can begin to draw with integrity certain conclusions. I know that females tend to take the high road, which is, I can change him if I work hard enough and try to pull him out of this. He'll do better.
Wrong. You can't change nobody in this world but yourself.
Would you say that again? Would you all listen to this, please?
You can't change nobody in this world but yourself.
And
Nobody.
changing yourself is not easy.
Absolutely. This is the thing. We can be an influence
Okay.
for change, but we can't make change in anybody. All you can be is an influence. And yes, if you want to be an influence to change, but you can only be an influence to change to something that's changing.
Ooh,
If he's not
if he's
trying
not
to
trying to
change,
change.
you're not going to influence change. You can only influence. When we talk about coming together, we talk about being synchronized. We have to understand the synchronicity. You got 4 fingers being synchronized with 4 other fingers.
Right.
Just because you can synchronize these 2,
Uh-huh.
don't mean these 3 have anything in common.
I got it.
Just because you can tie this one together, don't mean these other 3 have anything in common. So now when we establish synchronicity, now the small things, we're coming together on the small things.
Okay.
We're coming together on the intermediate things.
Okay.
Now we're coming together on the serious things. And now we can bind them together and seam them together with these other 2 extremities. And now we have synchronicity. But if we don't deal with the small things, the incidental things, the things that aren't important, if we don't deal with the intermittent things, which are the intermittent things? Those things that are significant to you and these things that are significant to me. And if we don't take those 2 and put them together to say these things are significant to us,
Right.
then there is not going to be any synchronicity. And without the synchronicity of all 4 coming together, you're missing the mark. And you have to have the intellectual. You have to have your moral.
Right.
There has to be a standard that it comes from.
Right.
If there's no moral fiber, if there's no standard, if there's no borders, if there's no parameters, there's no direction, then there's no harvest that is pleasant. There's going to be a harvest regardless what you do. But there's no harvest that's pleasant. And the thing is, once you get to this 50 mark, you want to start sowing some seeds that's going to get you some pleasant harvest,
Oh
because
my God, 'cause
you
you're
wake up
just
every
too
day
old.
to, oh boy, here we go,
go.
this again. Here we go with this again. Here we go with this again. And we have to put ourselves in the position where we're establishing something that we can look forward to, just as we did in our youth.
Because to me, the most joyous thing is to behold a couple that did it right. And now they're older.
Still doing it
And
right.
they're still doing it right. And to watch the interaction and the dynamics behind closed doors.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Because they say very little and they just
They
go
don't,
about
they,
the day
they
and
don't say
everything.
anything
Exactly.
because it's right there. And then you can look at other couples that look like ships going in different directions.
Absolutely.
And she's there because she's tied into this financially. She's made sacrifices because of the obligations. And he looking like death warmed over because he's not thriving on love. Viewers, you do need love for your heart to thrive.
Absolutely.
It doesn't work any other kind of way. You can't fake this. You will have heart problems, strokes, etc. because your heart is sick. I mean, it's deeper than a physical. Listen to me. Your heart is sick, and therefore it's open to problems and conditions, okay? A sick heart is a person heading to the grave.
A sick heart is also the separated heart. It's also the unloved heart. It's
Yes.
also the heart that hasn't been able to receive love because it hasn't successfully given love.
Okay.
Because when we start dealing with sickness and disease, it's because we're not thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And
the only reason.
when we talk about thriving, thriving is a harvest of the seed we sown.
Okay.
And if we're not thriving, it's because we haven't sown the appropriate seed to create the appropriate harvest.
Well, may I submit, just as a thought, because we're getting down toward the finish line here, Elder, if a person is in a loveless marriage, and there are many, many people watching, like, I can't take it. Is it, I'm not saying it as a solution, but can they not pour their love and concerns into doing things to help other people? Will that help?
It'll be a start, but it should be the start to bringing it back home.
Okay.
If you're starting to help other people, you help other people to assist you in learning how to help him or help each other.
Okay.
Because if you're not in the place of help, it's hard to share help if you don't have help, but you know, if you don't have the knowledge of helping. So you establish it any way by any means necessary. If you got to go do it outside to bring it home, then fine.
Then that's what you do. You'll become a more loving person.
The easier thing to do
Okay, let me hear it.
is to start in and work out.
So you start in a loveless marriage and begin to what?
You make up your mind.
Okay,
that
make up your mind.
I'm going to sow the seed of love, whether they do or not.
Okay.
Because you can't control what they do.
Right, that is absolutely true.
But if you believe God, that you sow, so that shall you reap. So if I make the decision to sow love, and I continue to sow love, and I stay consistent in sowing love, sooner or later, I'm going to get love back.
Oh my gosh, that's powerful.
It is.
That is so powerful.
And it's foolproof.
And
works
it
every
is
time.
foolproof, and it works every
Every time.
time. Well, we have run out of time, and this subject can be vetted much more than we've had time to vet it. But let me leave with a walk away for those of you that are over 50. It's different than those of you that are younger than 50. If you're younger than 50, be careful of the seeds you sow, because sowing and harvest is forever. And so you be careful of the things you do, the things you say, and your behavior, because you are going to reap. It's a fact. It's a law. And for those of you that are over 50 that are feeling discouraged and feel like, where do I begin again? How do I begin anew? I'm not married. I'm divorced. I'm not happy. I'm all the above. It still starts with love being the operative word. If you're single, you can come out of your selfishness and begin to learn what giving and love is about and what it looks like, even if you've never been the recipient of abundant, unconditional love. Just know God loves you, and He gives you unconditional opportunity every day to love others in a caring way, in an empathetic way, so that you can begin to engage in the whole conversation around communication. Remember, communication is not conversation. I don't care what the sun's doing today. I care about you. What's going on in your world? How are you doing? How are you faring? And Elder Dennis Hatchett gave us those understandings and tools that will enable you, even if you're in a lackluster marriage. It's all about a change of mind, change of mindset, and begin to push into those things. If you need counseling, get it. I'm not against counseling at all. If you need it and he's agreeable, get it. Hopefully you'll begin to see those positive fruits from the years of mean things said to each other. I don't know why couples say mean things to each other.
Because that's all they got.
That's all they got. Oh, they need to get something better. And on that closing thought, I again wish you love. I send you peace, and I pray for your joy. You take care, and God bless you. See you next time.